Live from the Magdalena Grand Beach and Golf Resort here in Tobago. It's Tobago Thursdays. Joining us this morning, Hans and myself, Mr. Martin George, President of the Tobago Business Chamber. Good morning to you, sir.
Yeah, hi, good morning to you guys, and welcome to Tobago.
Well, thanks for having us. Now, Mr. George, let me say congratulations on you were moderating last night in the conversations with the chief.
Yeah.
Of course, we paid attention to it because as most of Tobago
you.
is very interested
Yeah.
to find out what these people vying for Chief Secretary had to say.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the conversation that happened last night?
I actually found the level of discourse was quite good. It was very engaging. We touched on serious topics, and yet we were able to get to see a glimpse inside the personalities.
Right.
And I think that's what people wanted.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why we use a first name basis, you know. It wasn't stuffy or formal, you know, and people were able to relax, and, you know, they were even able to disagree with each other, but you do so in a way that, you know, you could disagree without being disagreeable.
Yeah.
You know?
Or
So-
disrespectful,
Yes,
yeah.
that's right. Yes. So I think it was really quite well, you know, put together, and I think it was a success.
Okay.
All right, so we say congratulations to Tobago Civil Net, who we
Yeah.
actually had earlier on in the show.
Okay.
Now, what do you see as the main issues in this election?
Well, the thing is, I mean, from a business perspective, I mean, certainly we think that we have to look at the questions of, you know, how do we start to rebuild the Tobago private sector, the Tobago economy,
Right.
It has taken a tremendous hit. I mean, it was already on life support even before the pandemic,
Right.
and that's the reality,
Yeah.
you know. But, you know, with the pandemic, I think, you know, basically it's your final rights, they've been administered, you know. So therefore, we have to look at how is the leadership going to take charge of helping to rebuild that sector, because the reality is you have 66% of your workforce being employed by the THE. That is unsustainable in
Yeah.
any society. You can't
Yeah.
have the governing body employing so large a percentage of the workforce. So therefore you have to encourage the entrepreneurship. You have to have the incubators for young persons who can now see an opportunity to develop, to be able to go into business for themselves. You have to have the training programs, because that's where it comes to, you know, financial literacy, being able to manage money, being able to manage your business, being able to manage yourself.
Yeah.
Because as a self-employed person, that's one of your greatest challenges.
Discipline.
Being able to manage
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
You know, it's not that because you're self-employed means that you could wake up 10 o'clock, you know, you feel to go to the office, or you don't feel. No, in fact, there's even more responsibility and
Yeah.
onus on you when you are self-employed. So these are things you have to teach people, you have to train them, and you have to develop them. You have to give a nurturing and enabling environment which will allow them to be able to learn, make their mistakes, grow, flourish, and then, you know, be able to branch off on their own.
But some people may say you could have all the programs, but it's up to the individuals to take up the programs, and it's up to the individuals to pursue these entrepreneurial ventures.
Good point. Excellent point. So therefore, in other words, you also need to make a culture change.
And that's
in
one of the
terms
topics that came up last
thinking
night,
and
yeah.
the mindset. That's right. Because
Yeah.
you see, in fact, I think one of the guests said so. They said that, you know, the thinking of many Tobagonians is, look, let me just get a safe THA job,
Right.
and I'm okay. You know, so therefore they look for that, or a THA contract. But the point is that culture change has to come about, and it has to be led from the top. You know, if you think back to the example of Singapore, right?
Right.
When Lee Kuan Yew took over, you know, I mean, he decided, listen, we are going to change the culture of the place. You know, so the corruption, the mismanagement, the nepotism, the cronyism, which was all part and parcel of normal everyday business. He said, no, all of these things are going to change. And I mean, now everybody sings his praises, because
Right.
they have recognized the
difference,
value
yeah.
that he has brought to their society by bringing about these changes. You know, I mean, Singapore is a quarter the size of Trinidad. I always like to remind people of that.
Yeah.
It is a very small island, very, very small. But the point is, they are the fourth largest financial center in the world. You know, they are one of the largest and busiest ports. You know, they are one of the most developed nations in terms of, you know, their sophistication in terms of financial matters and, you know, dealings. So therefore, we can learn so much from other countries if we are willing to make that mindset change.
Do you think it's possible? Do you think that we have the resources in place, or is it? Do you think just the chief secretary changing would be able to make something like that happen, like the cultural change? What sparks that? You say leading from the top, but I mean, even if one person comes in at the top and says, yes, I want to make that change, the whole system how do we change the system that
Right.
serves?
So the point is, it will take time. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
Right.
But you must have that vision. And that is what is needed desperately at this point. You must have that vision to decide, hey, listen, we have to start doing things differently. You can't come in and say, well, look, it's going to be same old, and expect that there's going to be a change.
Exactly.
Right.
So there must be that vision. There must be that leadership. You must have a team around you who also share that vision, and then now you have to sell that vision to the population, sell that vision to the nation. You have to sell that vision to them to say, hey, listen, we can be the best that we can be. You know, I mean, and you see, let me tell you, people can adapt. I can tell you something. I'll give you an example. When we first came to Tobago to set up our law firm, we set some parameters and some guidelines. We said, listen, okay, now there's a culture, there's a culture in Tobago where persons will just, drop in to your office and say, well, I come to see my lawyer. And we said, no, it can't work so. You must make a fixed appointment because we have a schedule that we work by. When we set our day, there are fixed times that we have things to do. So therefore, you can't just show up. And, and I mean, it took a while, but people have fallen into line. They understand that, and they go along with it now.
But what you're saying here technically is that the private sector can influence the change
of the culture.
So,
right, but that's one business at a time.
I know, but then if we take, because you're a part of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, so is it that the private sector could do a little more to change the culture?
Of course.
What you would like to see?
I would like to see that same vision being shared by our captains of industry, our leaders in business in Tobago, because we cannot allow things, even simple things, like for instance, all right, we have a system at our office. If you have an appointment set, if 15 minutes pass and you either don't show or don't call, it's automatically cancelled.
Right.
And you can come, it doesn't matter what, we will not see you, because in other words, we have another appointment that has been fixed that will take place, so it sometimes it takes hard decisions, but the point is, if you want to see that change, you have to make the incremental, steps to ensure that persons are guided along that way so that they themselves begin to see the benefit and value. Now it's at a stage where people recognize that and they say, listen, okay, I know I can't make it, so I'm going to call and I'm going to reschedule. And now that you can work with as a business.
Now, Mr. Judge, we don't have much time left, unfortunately, but I want to ask about, when you were collecting the information to ask you questions last night and stuff like that, one of the things that seemed to come up a lot is trust. And the Tobagonians not having trust or questioning their trust of the leaders of all these parties or some of the members of these parties or the people going up for election. How has that been able to influence what you've been seeing happening?
Well, the thing is, you see, I think the politicians in TNT have themselves to blame for that. That's the reality, if you understand me. You look at our history in TNT, our politicians have largely failed us. They have come with the greatest of blandishments and promises, and they promise you the sun, moon, and stars. And then when they elected, the same people who would come by you begging for your vote, they turn up their glass and they're sitting in the back with the chauffeur and they drive past you, they ignore you. You try to call them, they say, no, we can't see you, So the point is, they have broken that trust. So therefore, it's understandable why people are skeptical. Even if you have a new team that's coming with fresh ideas, people still look at them, through that rose-colored lens, because they feel that, look, you might just be more of the same.
Thank you very much.
Mr. George, unfortunately, we have to stop there. But thank you so much for joining us this morning.
It's a pleasure,
and thank you for being here with us, Trinidad and Tobago.